Lock the doors, draw the blinds, and grab your strongest cup of tea, ladies, because an unconfirmed behind the scenes whisper about next month's scripts just landed on my desk, and what these writers are planning for Sonny, Michael, and Lucas is downright terrifying. This is not your average daytime drama rumor. This is a drastic storyline shift that will leave us breathless. Let us dive right into this hush hush rumor that has been circulating among the deepest insider circles. We all knew that Jen Sidwell was not going to just fade into the background after his miraculous escape, but it seems like his revenge plot is taking a turn so sinister that even the most seasoned viewers will be shocked. Instead of aiming his crosshairs directly at the Teflon Don, Sonny Corinthos, Sidwell is reportedly deciding to execute a far more ruthless and emotionally devastating master plan. He knows that taking out Sonny in a straightforward assassination attempt would be far too easy, and frankly, it would lack the psychological torture he so desperately craves. Chances are that Sidwell has spent every waking moment in hiding analyzing the Corinthos family tree, looking for the exact pressure point that would cause the entire empire to crumble from within. And according to this unconfirmed leak, that pressure point is none other than Lucas Jones. Sidwell knows that Lucas was the crucial link, the absolute catalyst that caused his entire criminal enterprise to collapse. But simply putting a bullet in Lucas would not satisfy a megalomaniac like Sidwell. He wants to transform Lucas into a living, breathing instrument of absolute agony for Sonny. The sheer brilliance of this rumored plot lies in its terrifying misdirection. While the entire Port Charles police force, Dante Falconeri, and Sonny's personal security detail are hyper-focused on protecting the mob boss from a direct hit, a massive blind spot opens up. The whispers suggest that Michael Corinthos will suddenly vanish without a single trace almost immediately after returning to town. At first, the family is completely oblivious to the danger. It seems like the writers want us to believe that the Corinthos clan simply assumes Michael needed some time away to clear his head, perhaps dealing with his own complicated personal drama. They think he just packed a bag and left on his own terms. But what if this false sense of security is exactly what Sidwell was counting on? Chances are that Sidwell orchestrated this kidnapping with such surgical precision that no one even realizes a crime has been committed until it is far too late. The chilling thought of Michael being snatched right out from under his family's nose while they are all looking the other way is pure psychological horror. The realization of this nightmare reportedly hits Sonny like a freight train a few days later when a mysterious, untraceable video message arrives. Imagine the absolute dread washing over Sonny's face as he presses play. The unconfirmed leak paints a horrifying picture. Michael bruised, battered, and tightly bound to a chair in the middle of a dark, damp, abandoned warehouse. And lurking in the shadows right behind him, with that signature menacing grin, is Jen Sidwell. The truth might be way more complicated than a simple ransom demand. Sidwell looks directly into the camera and coldly declares that Michael is nothing more than an insurance policy. The real target, the absolute focus of his venomous wrath, is Lucas. This is where the hush hush rumor gets incredibly dark, ladies. Sidwell issues a chilling ultimatum that will freeze the blood in your veins. According to this drastic storyline shift, Sidwell demands that Lucas must publicly and unequivocally confess to colluding with Sonny. Lucas must stand before the world and admit that he helped steal the crucial evidence, actively betraying Sidwell and destroying his empire. If Lucas refuses to make this public confession, Michael will be executed. It seems like the writers are pushing Lucas into an impossible, soul-crushing corner. Think about the gravity of this situation. If Lucas complies and tells the truth to the authorities and the public, he is not just ruining his reputation, he is facing severe criminal prosecution. His entire medical career, everything he has worked his entire life to build, will be instantly incinerated. High chances are he would lose his medical license permanently and face years behind bars. But what if he stays silent? What if he tries to protect his future and his freedom? The cost of that silence is the brutal murder of his own nephew. The psychological warfare here is just astounding. The tension in this unconfirmed leak does not just simmer, it violently boils over when Sidwell reportedly sends a second, even more terrifying video. This time, there is no monologue, just pure, unadulterated terror. The rumor claims that the footage shows Sidwell pressing the cold steel of a loaded gun directly against Michael's temple. He gives Lucas exactly 48 hours to make his choice. The ticking clock element is a classic soap opera trope, but here it feels suffocatingly real. High chances are that we will see the entire Corinthos family descend into absolute panic. The sheer desperation that will grip the screen is going to be palpable. We have to Wonder how Lucas will cope with this crushing weight. Will he break down? Will he try to offer his own life in exchange? The truth might be way more complicated, as Lucas realizes that Sidwell does not want him dead, yet he wants him utterly humiliated and destroyed first. While Lucas is trapped in this agonizing moral and professional crisis, the men of the family are reportedly mobilizing for war. The behind the scenes whisper suggests a massive, frantic manhunt spearheaded by Sonny, Jason Morgan, and Dante Falconeri. Imagine the intense, high stakes strategy sessions between these three. Dante is already walking a tightrope with the police department, having recently defended Cassius Faison regarding Sidwell's initial escape. Now, his own brother is held captive by the very man he is trying to hunt down. Seems like Jason will be utilizing every single underworld contact he possesses, tearing Port Charles apart at the seams to find that abandoned warehouse. But what if Sidwell has anticipated their every move? High chances are that Sidwell has laid a trail of false clues, leading Jason and Dante on a wild goose chase while the 48-hour clock mercilessly ticks down. But here is where the unconfirmed leak takes an absolutely mind-blowing turn. While Michael is tied up in that dark room, waiting for what might be his final moments, he is not just a passive victim. The rumors strongly suggest that Michael overhears a conversation or perhaps discovers a hidden document that changes the entire landscape of the show. It seems like Sidwell's operation in Port Charles is just the tip of a massive, terrifying iceberg. What if Michael learns a secret so explosive that it has the power to not only obliterate Sidwell but also expose a massive, deeply entrenched conspiracy happening right under everyone's noses in Port Charles? The truth might be way more complicated than a simple revenge plot. High chances are that this secret involves other major players in town, perhaps tying back to the mysterious contacts we have been hearing whispers about. Michael suddenly becomes the holder of the most dangerous information in the city. As the 48-hour deadline approaches its final agonizing minutes, the leak details a heart-stopping rescue mission. Sonny, Jason, and Dante finally pinpoint the location of the warehouse. The atmosphere is described as thick with tension, the kind of cinematic showdown that daytime television rarely pulls off with such grit. They breach the perimeter, weapons drawn, expecting a heavy firefight. But what if Sidwell wants them exactly where they are? It seems like Sidwell has orchestrated this entire scenario not to hide from Sonny, but to lure him into a front row seat for his ultimate masterpiece of cruelty. The hush-hush rumor indicates that as Sonny kicks down the final door, he walks right into a meticulously designed trap, a stage set for the most agonizing decision of his life. This is the moment that will reportedly break the internet, ladies. As Sonny bursts into the room, the ultimate twist is revealed. Sidwell drops the bombshell that completely shatters everything we thought we knew about this storyline. He looks Sonny dead in the eye and casually reveals that he never actually intended to kill Michael. Michael was exactly what he said he was, bait. The truth might be way more complicated than we ever imagined, because Sidwell's actual execution target, the person he wants to bleed out on that dirty warehouse floor, is Lucas. Sidwell firmly believes that Lucas is the sole architect of his downfall, the thief who robbed him of his empire and his dignity. And he wants to pull the trigger while Sonny is forced to watch, helpless and paralyzed by the horror of his own family's destruction. The script leak describes a climax so intense it will leave us needing oxygen. In a fraction of a second, the situation devolves into absolute chaos. Sidwell reportedly shifts his weapon away from Michael and aims it directly at Lucas, who has somehow been brought to the scene or has arrived in a desperate attempt to surrender himself. Sonny is suddenly thrust into a waking nightmare. He has only a few agonizing seconds to react. It seems like the writers are forcing Sonny into the ultimate impossible choice. Does he dive to protect Michael, his flesh and blood, who is still vulnerable and restrained? Or does he throw himself in front of Lucas, the nephew, who is staring straight down the barrel of Sidwell's gun? High chances are that Sonny's hesitation, that microscopic delay caused by sheer panic, is exactly what Sidwell is banking on to secure his lethal victory. But then, the drastic storyline shift delivers its most emotionally devastating punch. Just as Sidwell's finger tightens on the trigger, the unconfirmed leak claims that Michael commits an act of unimaginable bravery. In a shocking display of heroism, Michael realizes that Sonny cannot save them both. What if Michael, despite having a fleeting opportunity to escape his restraints and run for his life, deliberately throws himself into the line of fire? The whisper is that Michael sacrifices his own chance at freedom, using his body to shield Lucas, or violently tackling Sidwell just as the gun goes off. It seems like this single desperate action is going to fundamentally redefine Michael's character. High chances are that this sacrifice will leave Michael gravely injured, but it will successfully save Lucas from certain death, completely derailing Sidwell's perfect execution plan. The emotional fallout from this rumored climax is going to be astronomical. We have to sit back and analyze what this means for the Corinthos family going forward. The truth might be way more complicated than a simple hospital recovery. If Michael takes a bullet or suffers a severe injury to save Lucas, the dynamic between these three men will be irrevocably altered for months, if not years to come. It seems like the lingering resentment or tension between Michael and Sonny might be washed away in the blood of this sacrifice. Sonny will have to look at his son not just as his heir, but as the savior of his family. And Lucas? High chances are that Lucas will be drowning in a sea of survivor's guilt, knowing that his nephew paid the ultimate physical price to protect him from a monster that Lucas himself helped agitate. Furthermore, this catastrophic event is going to pave the way for the ultimate blood-soaked confrontation between Sonny and Sidwell. The unconfirmed leaks suggest that in the chaotic aftermath of Michael's sacrifice, Sidwell manages to slip away into the shadows once again, but this time, the rules of engagement have completely changed. Sonny is no longer just defending his territory. He is hunting a man who nearly slaughtered his son and nephew, right in front of his eyes. What if Sonny decides that the police, the law, and even Jason's calculated methods are no longer sufficient? High chances are that we are going to see a version of Sonny Corinthos that is entirely unhinged, a grieving, enraged father who will stop at absolutely nothing to tear Jen Sidwell apart piece by piece. The streets of Port Charles are going to run red with this vendetta. And let us not forget the massive secret that Michael supposedly uncovered while he was tied up in that dark room. The hush-hush rumor indicates that even as Michael is bleeding and fighting for his life, he desperately tries to communicate what he learned to Sonny and Jason. What could this explosive information be? It seems like Sidwell is just a puppet, or perhaps a partner, in a much larger syndicate that is quietly taking over the city. The truth might be way more complicated than a simple mob rivalry. High chances are that this conspiracy will drag in other major families and powerful entities. Michael's sacrifice might not just save Lucas, it might be the very key to saving all of Port Charles from an impending doom that no one else saw coming. The ripple effects of this single warehouse standoff will command the show's narrative for the rest of the year. So, my dear friends, keep your eyes peeled and your expectations entirely shattered. If even half of this unconfirmed leak turns out to be true, we are in for the most agonizing, heart-wrenching, and spectacular television we have seen in a very long time. The stakes are quite literally life and death, and the emotional scars will be permanent. But remember, in the dark and treacherous world of Port Charles, nothing is ever exactly as it seems. Keep your doors locked, trust absolutely no one, and pray for Michael's survival, because the storm that is coming will spare absolutely no one in its path.